The town of Black Hollow had long ago forgotten what mercy sounded like. It was a place where doors were bolted before sunset and whispers carried more weight than prayers. On the coldest night of October 1887, wind clawed at the wooden storefronts and rattled the hanging sign outside the Silver Spur Saloon. Folks had already banked their fires and drawn their curtains tight when a lone figure rode in from the northern ridge. Her horse stumbled more than it galloped, foam crusted along its neck, breath steaming in the moonlight. The rider wore a man's coat 2 sizes too large, hat pulled low, boots powdered with trail dust. But beneath the brim her face was young, too young for the hardness in her eyes. Her name was Elira Vale, though most of the territory knew her by another title, the Outlaw's daughter. Her father, Garrick Vale, had been hunted across 3 counties for robberies, jailbreaks, and the killing of a deputy in Red Clay Pass. Posters with his likeness flapped from telegraph poles from Dodge City to Abilene. Some said he'd been shot dead weeks ago. Others swore he'd slipped into Mexico. But one rumor moved faster than the rest, that Garrick had hidden something before he vanished. Gold, perhaps, or a ledger with names powerful men wanted buried. And now his daughter had come knocking at midnight. Elira dismounted in front of the smallest cabin at the edge of town, far from the saloon and even farther from the sheriff's office. It belonged to Cade Mercer, a cattleman who preferred the company of horses to men and silence to gossip. Cade had once ridden with the Rangers, but left after a raid gone wrong cost him his younger brother. Since then he kept to himself, mending fences, breaking colts, and refusing every invitation to join the town council. The knock on his door was sharp and desperate, cutting through the howl of wind like a gunshot. Cade reached for his rifle out of habit before unlatching the door. When he pulled it open, the lantern light revealed a pale face and trembling hands. "I'm not here for trouble," Elira said, though her voice carried the echo of someone who'd known nothing but. Cade studied her without recognition at first. Then he saw it, the familiar set of her jaw, the eyes that matched the sketch on half the wanted posters in town. He could have shut the door. He could have called the sheriff. Instead, after a long silence, thick with consequence, he stepped aside and said, "You better come in before that storm buries you." Inside, the cabin smelled of cedarwood and coffee grounds. Elira stood stiffly near the hearth, unsure whether she had stepped into safety or a trap. Cade placed his rifle on the table but did not sit. "If you're here about your father," he began, "you should know. I never rode with him." Elira's hands tightened around the edge of her coat. "I'm not asking you to," she replied. "He's dead. They shot him 3 days past near Bitter Creek." Her words landed heavy. Cade watched her carefully. Grief was there, but so was fire. "Sheriff Donnelly's men took something from him before he died," she continued. "Something that doesn't belong to them." Cade's brow furrowed. Donnelly was no saint. Half the town suspected his badge weighed less than his greed. "Why come to me?" Cade asked quietly. Elira met his gaze without flinching. "Because you're the only man in Black Hollow who hasn't tried to profit off my father's name." Outside, thunder rolled across the plains, and in that moment, Cade understood that opening the door had already changed the course of both their lives. By dawn, word had spread like wildfire through dry brush. The outlaw's daughter had been seen in town. Sheriff Donnelly wasted no time gathering his deputies, their boots thudding across the wooden planks outside Cade's cabin. Cade stood on his porch as the first light of morning cut through the fog, shotgun resting casually in his hands, not raised, not threatening, but unmistakably present. Elira waited inside, heart hammering against her ribs. She had not come to hide. She had come to retrieve what was stolen, a leather-bound ledger her father had kept, filled with transactions that proved Donnelly had been skimming gold from evidence lockers and splitting it with cattle barons who feared exposure. When Donnelly called out, his voice carried false civility. "Morning, Mercer. Heard you've got company." Cade did not move. "You hear wrong more often than you ought to." "Sheriff!" The tension coiled tight as barbed wire. Elira knew she could slip out the back and run. She had done it her whole life, run before the bullets flew. But something about Cade standing firm stirred a different instinct in her. For the first time, She wasn't alone at a door waiting to be slammed in her face. What followed was not a gunfight, but something braver. Cade stepped off the porch and faced Donnelly in the open street. "You want the girl?" Cade said evenly. "You bring proof she's broken a law." Donnelly sneered. "Her name's proof enough." Townsfolk gathered at a distance, watching the confrontation unfold. Fear had kept them silent for years, but the sight of one man refusing to bow began to chip at that silence. Then Elira herself stepped outside. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She removed her hat, letting the wind catch her dark hair. "My father was no saint," she called out, voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "But he kept records. Records of bribes and stolen gold. You kill a man, Sheriff, but paper doesn't die so easy." Donnelly's confidence faltered for a fraction of a second, just enough for the townspeople to notice. Murmurs grew louder. Cade didn't smile, but he felt the shift. Power, once unquestioned, had begun to crack by sunset. The ledger lay open on a table inside the Silver Spur, pages exposed to every pair of eyes willing to see. Names that commanded respect now sparked outrage. Donnelly was stripped of his badge before nightfall, escorted out of town under armed watch. Justice in Black Hollow had not arrived with bullets, but with truth. As the crowd dispersed, whispers turned to cautious hope. Elira stood alone near the hitching post, uncertain what came next. She had chased vengeance across dusty miles, only to find something steadier waiting on the other side of midnight. Cade approached, hands tucked into his vest. "Storm's cleared," he said quietly. She nodded. "I don't reckon I'll be staying long." Cade looked out toward the open plains. "Doors don't only open once," he replied. The wind that night was gentler, carrying away the last echoes of Garrick Vale's shadow. And in a town that had forgotten mercy, one cowboy's choice to open a door had given an outlaw's daughter a chance to write a different ending.